Hello everyone and welcome back to Fleet's Focus Discussions. Yes, not a ramblings this week, just a focused discussion. Because I wanted to do something a little bit different today. So yeah, a focused discussion this week, not a ramblings. Primarily focused on alternate history. I will take alternative questions from the chat, but I am also going to discuss some alternative things that I feel like we don't really get a chance to discuss that often. About the realism regarding alternate history, how it's often misused, and most importantly, I want to address something where I feel like I went drastically wrong in the past. And by that I mean in terms of critique where it honestly wasn't warranted. If I'm going to be completely honest. So let's start with that particular can of worms first. And that being, honestly something that I'm not particularly proud of, but I feel like I need to discuss. Drake's drum.
Knew that would be the topic.
Having reread and actually reread the books properly, reread the wiki, and having a lot more experience now than I did 2 years ago in crafting fiction. Generally, we really did that whole thing a massive disservice. Aggressively so. I mean, really, we not our finest moment at all.
Don't bring me into it. I wasn't there for most of it.
You weren't, but even so.
And I was just guiding of what things were what.
Yeah.
But still. The whole premise was deeply flawed to begin with.
No, it wasn't.
Well, yes, we were critiquing something that really didn't deserve critique. It's quite good.
What? Yes, I personally quite enjoy it, but that doesn't mean it's not worthy of critique.
Yes,
yeah, but I think there's parts of that were worthy of critique. Yes,
but the critique was shallow and deeply flawed,
and stuff like
in some areas.
Right.
And it was all of it.
No. No. When it was stuff like in the book, where was Clement Attlee, or why the British 1930 small tube boilers everywhere, including the Nazi German Navy.
Like, why is everything a Yarrow boiler?
Those were worthy critiques. But yeah, a lot of Ewan Clark in particular did take it way too far.
I will admit, I did try to moderate it, but Clark just went off the deep end. And kind of dragged me with him.
We're gonna 3-speed dragon.
Yep.
Yeah. I have been looking into, quietly, the prospect of redoing it, but in an entirely different format.
Sounds interesting. Depends how you want to do it.
I think, given the fact that I know for a fact the original author actually saw that, and I feel like, knowing what I know about creating fictional universes, crafting stuff like that, etc., that I know now that I didn't know before, I would deeply love to have an honest, just open field discussion, no critique, of why he made the choices he made, what made him pick the ship and aircraft and tank designs he did. Like, what was the thinking behind went for this option over the others that he could have picked, and actually discuss the world building of this world that he's crafted. Rather than trying to do what we did and tear it apart so brutally for not being 100% accurate. which
I
was wrong.
No,
if I'm
I
gonna be
think
honest
you're
with
now
you.
going too far the other way. And this is coming from someone who actually really does quite like the book. You are now very much going the opposite of
The self-flagellation route.
Well, I mean, what other option is there? We did really overdo it.
Yes and no.
It's one of the only things of my own content I physically can't watch for wanting to reach through the screen and beat myself over the head.
That suggests other problems.
Well, no. I mean, I know what I heard, and I know what I said.
Oh yeah. We're not saying you should be ashamed of what you did, but you can't act like the book's not worthy of criticism.
Well,
Even as someone who's enjoyed it, still a hell of a lot of criticism I would have for the book.
I'm not saying that I make no mistake, I'm not saying that it can't be critiqued. What I am saying is that basically it's not really productive. It doesn't really help. The book's already written.
Oh, yeah. But it's the same reason you can still criticize Paradise Lost as a book. Just because it's set in stone now doesn't mean you can't criticize it.
That wasn't...
Sorry, anyway, you were saying, Fleet.
But yeah, basically that's one of the... I think overall, in terms of the things we discussed, the ships themselves, they're honestly fine. If I'm gonna be brutally honest.
Some of them aren't.
They are
them
there. They are there to tell. They are there to be adjutants to a story. The level of detail he's gone into honestly wasn't required to tell the story. So at that point, my argument would be the fact that he's got it mostly right is fine.
I'm sorry.
I feel like we kind of missed the forest for the trees.
Again, I feel that's a speak for yourself, but
I mean, I can't see any reason why. I mean, I can't see any reason why that couldn't be the case. I mean, what's your objection to that premise?
What objection?
Well, you say that when I say that the author has done the ships mostly accurate enough to be all right for the book he's writing, but you say that I speak for myself in that regard.
That's the wrong bit. It's the bit about the how people criticize it too much and the ways they criticize it was too much. It's like, no, speak for yourself in that regard. Me and Voxer were actively trying to defend it in a lot of cases.
Oh yeah, I know.
Case, this is indefensible.
No, I know that's fine. I'm not no argument there.
That's the bit of speak for yourself comes from.
Well, then maybe don't say it after I've said something very specific, because that kind of implies you're.
No, I did say it after that bit though.
You also said it after the.
Yeah. And it's also the fact that the whole shipwrights thing, to a degree they get the shipwrights, but the Yarrow boilers thing is
Very big misstep.
It
The fact
is,
that-
but honestly, I feel like it fundamentally doesn't really matter.
It does. It matters massively when you look into it.
Like, if you look at it from a as within reference to the ships that make up the timeline, which was what we're supposed to be looking at,
Mhm.
and maybe some of the British politics and the whole Clement Attlee thing. The engines that go in your boats are, forgive me for being presumptuous, pretty damn important.
They're one of, if not possibly the most important component in the ship.
Oh,
We're not criticizing anything, Wellesley. That's kind of the whole point of the.
well,
It's one. It's a style of thing I've been trying to move away from. Just because, to be frank, it's toxic, it's harmful, it's reductive. It overly simplifies and reduces and grinds down literary work needlessly.
No, Fleet, again, you're going too far self-flagellation route.
I'm not talking generally.
'Cause-
Critique's,
well, yeah, but-
critique's overly toxic as a genre.
no, it's not.
No, it's not.
Critiques. Right. Critique is something you have to balance. And you've gone too far the other way with this. Because overly harsh and going out your way to be rude critique, that's bad. But offering no critique and only as support is what's called toxic positivity. And it's called toxic positivity for a reason. Right? Without critique and naysaying and only saying positive things, bad shit happens.
I will point out that I haven't said that I wouldn't critique anything. My point was that.
You just said critique's toxic.
Well, no, I said the current. I said critique as it's currently presented overall in the online space is toxic. It's
No, it's not
overly
that.
harsh and not constructive. It's usually this is shit, the person making it shit.
But,
There is good critique out there, don't get me wrong, but from what I've seen overall, especially in the historical space, it's just bad. I mean, controversial take. The hate that Laserpig gets is just an example of this.
It's also well deserved. It's like, do people take it so far? Yes. But a lot of people have a lot of very good points about how he acts and how poorly some of his stuff is sourced.
I mean, his sources are pretty good.
No, some of them aren't.
right. So, since people are pinging it, right. What Fleet's referring to is there was an old video which Fleet did called Analyzing Drake's Drum.
The Drake's Drum Dreadnought Dissection, to give it its full title.
Drake's Drum is a basically what if series of books of things go differently.
Okay, no, best way to imagine it is, what if the Second World War, instead of being one singular death march, was a series of wars like the Napoleonic and the 30 Years' War?
which is an exceptionally interesting premise.
Red Fleet might come up, Wellesley, but that's not the only thing.
No.
But so,
And also, we're currently
for instance,
discussing...
Britain wins the Battle of Jutland harder because they figure out about the Green Boy shells earlier. Beatty is present at negotiations because, well, he's a big naval hero now because they won the Battle of Jutland.
Because
the
the Royal
treaties
Navy's in a significantly better position, the Washington Treaty's never signed.
No, it
because
is.
America...
It is. It's
Oh, well,
different.
It's radically
it's different.
different.
I could remember correctly, it's the Washington Treaty as we know it doesn't get signed.
No, the
And
London Treaty just
America
isn't.
doesn't get parity.
No, America does get parity with Britain, but everyone's allowed to build capital ships.
Yes, but they were allowed fewer.
No.
They were
No,
right. It's more complicated than that. Yeah, they are allowed near parity. They don't get the
Let's
same,
not
but
get into the... Look, we
also
don't
they
need...
don't.
Look, the details right
yes,
now
they do
don't
because
matter.
context. Because all, and I'm going to finish my point at least. And another point, though, Foxer, to explain is basically it is acknowledged the U.S. Senate will never build to their capacity anyway,
yes.
which they don't.
Yes, and then the biggest premise for the book is that unlike OTL, the relationship between England, Britain, and America never warms in the 20s and the 30s. Britain and America, they, in their late 20th century, we don't like each other's attitudes toward each other. Which comes to play in the First World War, where by 1941, in the First Hilarion War, Britain's going around looking for money to support its fleet, and America doesn't give the loans, which causes the end of the First Hilarion War because it stalemates.
France falls, but Germany can't invade Britain, and Britain just can't afford to keep fighting alone with no help from the US, basically no lend-lease from the US, and the US still wanting money for the debts. Which Britain's still able to work on, but it's a case of we can't do this. Plus also Britain stays with the sterling standard instead of moving to the gold standard during this period, which is a huge difference.
And because of one of the things that helped alleviate Great Depression in OTL, which is the British stepping up debt repayments, which helps stabilize the dollar, doesn't happen in this timeline. The Great Depression hits harder because the dollar almost collapses.
Which basically means that America and Britain are at somewhat an equal playing field when it comes to the post-Hitlerian wars.
Yes. And OTL, the UK helped bail out France to a degree that France could still keep paying and didn't have a default on its debts. In this timeline, the UK doesn't do that, so France defaults. And France's debt was somewhere like a significant chunk of value of the dollar, because they keep racking up post-war.
But anyway, look, while I appreciate the dive into the basics of Drake's Drum, I do have to pull us back towards the topic under discussion here, which was namely the topic around critique and its current status generally. The basic premise for this, which is what the context everyone's lacking, is, as far as I'm concerned, the video that I did on Drake's Drum is the worst piece of content I've ever produced. It's honestly tacky. The sound quality's terrible. The critique that it's fine when it's myself, Dragon, Drakenfell, and Chair. It's fairly balanced and there's a bit of back and forth. When Dr. Clark shows up, it kind of goes off the rails in a very, very bad way.
No, he starts actually quite reasonable. Like, he does start quite reasonable, and it's as you go further and further and further, he starts going,
The fact
No.
the fact that we started going is bad enough.
No, it's not, because it's understandable.
Not really. We didn't find anything that was worth that transition.
Uh,
I know what started the transition was a very good point of. This is largely political history of Britain in this period. Where the fuck is Clement Attlee?
Where are a number of major political players in this?
Yeah, Clement Attlee, who's been in politics since before the First World War, and has been a major player in the Labour Party since the 20s. Who was rivaled only by Churchill in gravitas. And it's him backing Churchill's government after the fall of France that means the British government doesn't collapse. He was missing from the entire novel. Set of novels. And Churchill at least gets killed.
Churchill gets hit by a car.
Ah, the old
Which is
Churchill
fair
dies
enough. He did almost get hit by a car twice.
No, he did get hit by a car
In the
and had to walk with a cane in the 30s. That accident could have killed him.
Yeah, he then almost gets hit by a car at the Yalta Conference, and in 1941 where he meets Roosevelt.
Man is prone to attracting automobiles.
He gets out of the car the wrong side, which is a death sentence in America.
Which is a mistake entirely plausible. Because I know Americans who have done that here.
Yeah.
I've known British people in America who have done it. And it's a case of, whoops, no, that wasn't right.
Yeah. And it was a criticism of Clement Attlee not appearing in the book when it's political history. And going on why it doesn't make sense him not being there, we don't have a reason why he's not there.
And then that basically led to myself and Dr. Clark first, but then followed by me basically going, well, this person doesn't know what they're talking about, and then that kind of radically spiraled out of all control. Although I will say to my credit, when certain members of the audience really went off the deep end, I'm not naming any names, we did at least claw it back.
Yeah.
That's still small comfort to me, though, because we should have done far better.
Then just see about redoing it.
I will do.
Yeah. And actually, if we could get Clark to actually read the fucking book, because he only read parts of it.
It was relatively short notice. By Clark's standards.
But point still stands. Half explaining to Clark what was going on as it went. Well, Dragon was. I was fucking driving home at the time listening.
If only you'd been there.
I still... it wouldn't make a difference. I still personally do quite enjoy it, but there's still a lot of stuff I go, this makes no sense.
And the point I'm making is that this is a work of alternate fiction, if we're going to be completely brutally honest. Alternate history of this scale is fiction. Let's not beat about the bush, that's what it is.
What do you mean beat around the bush? That's just a known fact.
And I would argue at that point, a lot of the capital ships having Yarrow boilers is honestly fine. They're just stand-ins for that nation's boilers, it's fine.
No, because with basic... that one's not so fine. Because it does not take much to not even get the actual boiler, but just go, yes, they're using crop boilers, for instance, you could just say. You just don't specify.
Just 8 boilers.
Or just go...
8 boilers.
KMS Bismarck. What were the boilers on the KMS Bismarck? They were 12 Wagner superheated boilers.
To be fair, he does get the German boilers right. Which is...
Now he does.
Yeah.
They previously didn't.
No,
No, initially they were labeled as Yarrow.
Yes,
Wait,
it got
that's-
re-released.
Wait, that we actually had some effect?
No, there was even you commented on, hey, a few months later, I was rereading through the appendixes and saw, yes, they've changed the boilers over now.
Some of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
And
still don't think it matters all that much.
It does. Like, look, there.
He didn't
Is it-
even have to make the
Let me finish. Did he have to do it? No, and it's wonderful that he did this in general. And I am incredibly grateful to do, because I get a lot of fun stuff that I can torment people, and I actually just like a lot of these. But it is the thing of,
Nintendo Archives.
it is a case of, if you are going through the effort of doing this, you do basic fact checking. People who do this for free on the internet will get criticized and fact checked if they get something wrong. It is not that hard just to look at something. Is it a major issue? No, but the more you expand on something, the more people will critique it. It's why there is a law in science fiction of, if you do not want to be critiqued, don't explain it. Because if you try and explain it and it's incorrect, people will jump on you. Or you then create a rule of it. Oh, well, why is this not correct? Oh, well, it works like this because of X, Y, Z in this setting.
and you can't do that in alternate history, not really.
Yes, but the fact that previously it was all Yarrow boilers, focusing on this one just because these won't go off, is a case of that shouldn't have been too hard just to do something different. Yes, people will still critique for not explaining things, but on average, the percentage of people not critiquing because it's not explained versus critiquing because it's been explained incorrectly, huge difference. It's like the whole thing of, if you ever want to get a correct answer on the internet, say something wrong confidently, and someone will correct you.
Yeah, it's sort of like, I know it's going to sound like a strange segue, but Flash. Has anyone here seen Flash Gordon?
Yes.
Flash Gordon doesn't explain shit on how it does work.
And it's awesome.
And it's awesome. And you don't and Flash Gordon doesn't get criticized for doing stuff wrong, because very quickly enters a de facto agreement with the reader or the watcher going,
This just is.
this just works. And if you're going to the effort of doing the appendix, it's kind of, you get it wrong, people are going to criticize you. Because it's like getting a maths equation wrong. And jumping 10 light years instead of 300,000 light years. Looking at you, Halo. Yeah. But if you don't say how long or how far it takes to jump, like in Flash Gordon, people can criticize it.
I mean, I suppose. But I mean, look at the effort he's put in. The armored fighting vehicles, the military aircraft.
Yeah, which is why you compliment him on putting in the effort. And you then critique on, but you've got this bit wrong. That is what critique is. You're not trying to tear them down. It's a case of, hey, this bit's not right because of X, Y, Z.
And this brings me to something else this brings me to the thing. Basically, when people ask very vague alternate history questions and we go, we can't answer them, this bar of entry that we've basically built up over years of doing ramblings and the focused discussions, this is why. This is why we can't answer your vague alternate history question. For example, we got one a couple of weeks ago, which was, what if the German states don't unite and Bavaria is independent, or something like that, in like the 1860s, and we go, okay, that's yeah, okay, off you go to write a book. there's very little we can do with that. That's very, very vague. You've also not said why they haven't united. Like, did Prussia just fail? Did Bavaria fight? Did Austria get involved? Who were the major players? Who were the people involved? Did France have a say? Did Britain get involved? Was Victoria meddling in European family politics? Were the Russians involved? Were the Ottomans somehow playing in this? Did the Italians cause trouble?
Did John Huss fall off his horse in 1342, which led to the Crown of Bohemia holding its personal union over the Duchy of Bavaria, especially the Duchy of Upper Munich, because the Hussite Wars never happened and Bohemia stays the dominant power in the Holy Roman Empire, not losing its crown to Austria after the Hussite Wars that killed half the population. Which then to a Czechized Bohemia, a Czechized Bavaria that isn't German, that doesn't see itself as German. It sees itself as Czech. Like, for any alternate history question, we do need a point of divergence and why this diverged. I'd preferably keep it within one lifetime. Unless you need more.
Well, it's why I agree with Clark. Theoretically, realistically speaking, you can't. On average, if you want to try and do an alternative history question like this, and you're not going to go for a very long form solution like Drake Strum did, where it's over 5 bloody books, you can only do maybe a year or two. Maybe 3 if you've got enough concrete sort of this is what would have been to work with it.
Like, and here's the thing. Like, we are happy to do the longer than 3-year questions, but not by too much. And you have to allow us to admit that we're entering into the realms of baseless conjecture and what we think would happen, and perhaps, given that this is the panel, what might be funny to have happen, because that's also something we do.
Yeah, it should also be said the 3 to 4 year thing probably should only be for more modern alternate histories. Because when you go back after the invention of the telegraph, history starts taking a lot longer for shit to happen. Like unless you're in a period of extreme trouble, 4 years in Tudor era or Edwardian England, nothing really happens. Hence why you can talk on the 20 to 30 year timescales, or the entire generation and monarch. Okay, if X ascends to the throne, what happens?
Yeah. Also, again, I'm gonna address the elephant in the room. We also just don't ask us what happens when MacGuffin McMuffin and his 2,000 black F-22s of the United States go back to Virginia in 1961. Like, that's just no.
Wait, no. Are you aware of the famous thing that happened in Virginia in 1962 or 1961?
Yes, I know, but I picked a random year. I picked a random year. I didn't mean to, but you get what I mean.
I don't know.
What I'm trying to say is that the whole you send back any significant amount of tech or military hardware from any significant point in a future to the past, and the answer will always be, they fucking win!
No, I will put an asterisk on that. That's for a lot of modern shit. But say you send some World War I era equipment back to the Napoleonic Wars.
They just win!
They don't.
Provided you're not sending machine guns, it's a lot more interesting question.
Also,
no, it's
even
not.
sending
They
stuff from
have...
like World War II to World War One can be very interesting, depending on exactly what you're sending back.
I will point out, World War I to the point was that they still just fucking win. The breach...
Depends what you send back.
Even if it's anything that isn't... If it's any of the firearms in significant numbers with men who know how to use them, they fucking win. For God's sake, we had an example of this with less advanced firearms. Look at the pasting the Austrians got from the Prussians. When one side had breech-loading bolt-action rifles, admittedly single shot, but still, and the other side had muzzle-loading rifles. The Prussians gave the Austrians an absolute pasting.
Yeah? But do you want to know in that conflict why the Russians gave the Austrians pasting?
Yes, there were tactics involved as well, but still, the tech was
because
massive.
the Prussians were fighting in Silesia and the Silesian railway network, the second only to the Ruhr. The Austrians were trying to fight across the Carpathians and had
That
the
reminds me.
logistical tail.
Yes, but that doesn't really change the outcome of the battle itself. The battles that involve
Yeah, it
the
does.
two armies.
Because the Prussians had tactical and strategic mobility, the Austrians didn't.
Yes, but that doesn't
And
change.
they had more men,
Yeah, no,
and they had more artillery, and they had more ammunition.
It doesn't change the fact that when it came down to the battle itself, the Prussian technological advantage clearly showed.
Which, that reminds me, there's a question I need to ask you, because I'm curious of your answer.
It's like... That'd be a good point. If technology was all that mattered, or was to
I'm
go
not saying-
back from breech loaders to bolt actions, Bulgaria should have won all 3 Balkan wars. Because they were the only ones to see mass adoption of contemporary rifles. And Bulgarians didn't.
Yeah, because Bulgaria tried to fight everyone.
Yeah?
When the Bulgarians...
And the Serbians and the Romanians and the Greeks figured out how to mitigate their advantages.
Yeah, but when the Bulgarians weren't fighting everyone, they kicked absolute ass.
Yeah, but it's sort of like, when it comes to sending stuff back, if people of the time have a frame of reference for that equipment, you could have quite an interesting conversation about the equipment itself and how it compares, and cool things that can happen with it. The big issue with sending stuff back in time is or when the locals have no context of what the fuck is going on. Like, for example, Napoleon and Napoleon's army in the Second War of the Coalition.
Mm-hmm.
If Britain rocks up with 128 RAF Pavnavia Tornadoes equipped with JDAMs and cluster munitions, he can't do shit.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if they turn up with, a couple field batteries of 76s...
That's bad for the...
But he actually can deal with that because...
No, he can't! That's you're talking
He
about. You're talking about breech-loading, quick-firing guns, firing
Right.
shrapnel.
But
That's just death. That's just
but-
death.
he's already fighting cannon batteries that are not that dissimilar, so he knows...
No.
Yeah.
No. I'm sorry. You
Right.
you do not understand the absolute step change that was the quick firing gun and the modern fused HE and shrapnel round. It's such a change in the lethality of artillery.
Yes.
You show up
Yes.
with
But
three
he can
with
still understand how do these function. It's not this is literal magic.
yes,
Yeah, and
but it's
it's
still
like-
but I still
It's
refer,
like-
it's
no,
still
no,
death.
Fleet, let her
But
finish.
it's also he would actually be able to fight against 75mm great firing artillery. Because as much as we like to give his infantry forces and artillery tactics all the credit, he was also very good at eliminating other sides' artillery with cavalry usage.
As long as we accept the fact that if he tries to fight them on the field the first time normally, he's gonna get paddled.
The first time he tries it, he'll get butchered. But then he'll learn.
That's fine. As long as that's the thing we're operating under, that's fine. It's more just this is the thing that I do have a problem with when we do this alternate history, that we launch straight in with the he can deal with this. I feel like if we do these questions and we do want to answer them, we need to launch in with the he's gonna get creamed, and then he's gonna learn.
Yeah,
That's yeah, and also that's dependent. And also, most people kind of assume that the first time it'll be used, it could potentially be
the problem that we have with, well, yes, people who are historically literate would assume he's going to get creamed. There are people who are listening to the show who aren't historically literate in the capabilities of quick-firing field guns or Napoleonic-era line armies. This is why we have to cover all the bases, start from basic principles, and go from there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, which is why I went and put forward the basics of... It's a okay question if the opponents at the time have context for what the fuck's going on, and actually have some way of interacting with it that's not they die by something they physically can't see. Looking at all those questions about sending F-15s back to the First World War.
Yeah. I also do want to, as an example, I want to give an example of a question that's actually an interesting thing, which is a question that seems like it's a massive divergence, but actually isn't. Which is the one that Slayer just asked. Which is, what if France didn't fully embrace Unicol in the 1880s? The thought process is that battleships can be supported by large torpedo boat and cruiser screens, however battleship-sized guns are still required to kill battleships. Additionally, to make sure their battleships are the cream of the crop so they can't afford mistakes, they still quality control and demand shipbuilders stick to the designs. How would Britain and the others react to this? You're basically just having France keep doing what it was doing prior to the 10-year pivot into embracing Je ne colle, which means you get perhaps 4 to 8 more ironclads in the 1880s, built and commissioned in the 1880s, and then you get their traditional pre-dreadnought era starting slightly earlier, with perhaps maybe more ships that are slightly larger and direct equivalents to what Britain, Germany, Russia are building. This is the thing. France not embracing Je ne colle doesn't suddenly result in a massive step change in French naval construction. It just results in France sliding to rank 3 or 4 much more slowly than they did.
Yeah. And it also means you don't get any of the... much as I know you like them, Fleet, but from an actual military point perspective, the abominations of when they do start building battleships again.
Yeah, you're not gonna. If the infrastructure has been keeping up with the increasing size of capital ships naturally, you're not gonna have the need for the French were adopting tumble home. The French were adopting tumble home on their designs, but it was a very gradual tumble home when they first started to adopt it, and would likely have remained so.
I would say France was actually still building battleships had a higher chance of realizing, oh god, tumble home is an absolutely terrible idea for a ship made of iron and steel.
Well, tumble homes. This is the thing that everyone forgets. Tumble home's disadvantages were very well known. In particular, its flooding disadvantages. They were known. But
and there's a lot of seakeeping disadvantages that the French refused to take into account.
Yeah, but
it was you can break it.
But it was considered an acceptable trade-off to get capital ships that, on paper, were a match for their opponents overseas.
Or just stressing that on paper. But
I am.
and for
I
those of
really
you-
am.
And for those of you that are wondering why I bring up the game of the Tumble Home, because Tumble Home, brilliant for making ships out of wood or iron-plated wooden ships. Because even if a ship takes damage at the waterline, the ship is still buoyant, and a Tumble Home is very good at getting a wooden ship to founder flat, as compared to lifting. Which in the Age of Sail, it's fucking brilliant. It's why pretty much all Age of Sail ships for Tumble Home that weren't clippers.
Yeah.
Or brigs. Or a derivative of either. Or technically Mediterranean galley, but a lot of the bigger ones of those were Tumble Home. It was just a Tumble Home beneath the waterline. On a steel ship or an iron ship, iron is not buoyant.
Yes.
And so you cannot use the fact that your upper structure is buoyant to counter lifting.
Indeed. But
Which means that you lift harder as
Yeah.
you take on more water.
But this was basically, to bring it back to the topic under discussion, this was an example of a question where it seems like a lot's going to change, but in reality, it doesn't.
Well, no, it does change a lot.
Not really.
I think yes, because if the French are building more battleships, the British will likely have an increase in counter production.
Not significantly. The thing you have to bear in mind is that the British were already outbuilding everyone to an insane degree. And you might see 2 to 3 ships appended onto the end of the admirals, maybe to the 16.25 admirals, the last of the admiral ironclads. But apart from that, there's there's nothing really the British have to do to maintain a clear superiority over the French. A very clear superiority over the French. This is the thing. It's
They have a big difference, though. No matter slow down the torpedo.
no, not really. The torpedo's development was running independent of Je ne Call. Yeah.
So a lot of that development, especially stuff like the Whitehead torpedo, which is the developmental step change that turns the torpedoes of the period into torpedoes as we know them, was funded specifically by the French government.
No.
Well, it was partially funded by by the French government, and it took part in several major French contracts.
No.
Where it didn't end up winning, but it took part in them.
No. The experiments that led to the Whitehead's locomotive torpedo were primarily funded by Whitehead himself and the Austro-Hungarian Navy. The French adopted it laterally through license.
Yep. But that's not what I was getting at. What I was getting at was, it was the French mesh adoption of the self-locomotive torpedo that led to a massive amount of demand from it as people started to mimic some French ideas.
No, the torpedo
which created the context for Whitehead to make money out of developing it, so he developed it himself and then sold it.
No.
They induced demand into the market that led to its rapid development.
No. That's just flat out not what happened. The Whitehead torpedo was widely adopted by numerous navies. The French were only one. its adoption is noted as being widespread across the board, nearly simultaneously in multiple navies. The
Yeah.
French were only one of a group of navies that adopted it.
You don't listen to what I said.
Yes, but the French were not a singular large customer. They
No,
were
they weren't.
They were one of several.
But they induced a very large amount of demand into the market. Different companies and different people stepped up to fill that demand. You're correct. The development of these weapon systems that came from we want to fill that demand then got widely adopted by everyone when everyone else went, huh, that's actually a good idea. And so if you don't have that massive amount of induced demand, then there's a lot less money in designing and building torpedoes, which means a lot less money gets put into designing and building torpedoes.
I don't think that's right.
Considering it was actually the British who adopted it the first in Europe, basically.
The French did put large orders in, but I don't think that
The British actually bought manufacturing rights.
And also, I would point out that while I get where Foxo's coming from, the French, even if they don't adopt Je ne Colle, are still going to be enthusiastic adopters of the torpedo. The torpedo boat, as a concept, proliferated rapidly through both Je ne Colle and non-Je ne Colle navies to almost the same extent. The only real difference between Je ne Colle and non-Je ne Colle navies was whether or not they slapped a battle fleet on top of it. That was the only real difference. And it's a thing that a lot of people miss. This France is not going to be less enthusiastic an adopter of the locomotive torpedo just because they're also still building battleships at a reasonable rate. And now to go on to the third mutant hand, which is just bad or leading alternate history questions. Now, we don't get many of these on Ramblings or the other companion shows. Well, not anymore. But these are by far the worst questions. These are the questions that are looking for an answer or a scenario to be crafted, and all they've basically come for is validation. And basically nothing else. Some bad examples that I can think of would be... Yes, I'll just very quickly divert. Yes, Wellesley, the Russians, the French, the Italians, and the Ottoman Empire were the 4 other major naval powers with capital ships the British were contending with. The Russians, the French, and the Italians in particular.
Russians, the French? You mean the French?
Yeah, sorry, the Russians and the French. And the Italians in particular.
I mean, calling France an alien hive mind? How progressive of you, mate.
Funny. But yes, anyway. So some bad examples would be some good examples of bad questions would be, let me think, what was a really bad one we had? I think it was something along the lines of, why were the Germans so stupid as to not just adopt the STG-44 or the ME-62? Well, you know, it was a very early question in Ramblings, but it was also a very wearable question, and we haven't had many of them before or since. But some other examples were, and the person who I'm talking about knows who he is. He isn't here right now, but he knows who he is. Questions comparing 2 different types of technology from 2 different countries, with one clearly meant to be the gotcha winner, and the panel's supposed to clap and say how clearly superior the one country's tech is over the other, when the question so clearly lays out why it is. You know who you are. I don't have to say any more than that. You know who you are.
You know, I think Fleet's judging people.
I didn't.
No, God no. Knight? No, God,
I
no.
didn't think he was talking about Cyclic.
God no. Not Knight, nor Cyclic. Jesus.
Oh, no, I can understand where Fox is coming from, though.
No, they know who they are, Wellesley. That they've been called out on it. They know
To be
who
fair,
they are.
if it's who I think it is, it's very obvious. Anyway, you can stop saying I know who they are and just.
But anyway,
on with
the
it.
point. Yeah, so that's a no, Timu. When was the last time you asked a question about actual equipment specifically?
Ooh, that's a MiG-19.
But anyway, the point I'm making is those questions are bad.
Timu's Patreon question quickly.
That's a fair point. That is Patreon questions, technically.
Yes, we should do that before I forget. Thank you,
Thank you for reminding me,
Foxo.
Timu. Timu, look at us.
Yes, there is. Timu Locker asks, what has been the oddest means of transportation the panel members have used? Probably cable cars, if I'm going to be completely honest. Probably cable cars. I like cable cars, but they are the oddest means of transport I've ever used. Probably just...
Quick question, what's the rating of this show again?
18 plus.
Dodge.
Okay.
There should be no children
Because
watching Ramblings. If you
because
are...
because the strangest mode of transport I've ever used is redacted, pulling a redacted.
I see.
Redacted.
You're referring to Alyssa, aren't you? I don't even need to give more context than that, but...
I have mentioned Alyssa before. Normally, I use her epithet, known as
Blank.
I think a dragon to fill in there.
No, I'm just leaving it there, 'cause I have gave all I need to do in terms of context. I do not need to mention anything further. Strangest form of transport.
Cable car.
Been on cables but cars, but I wouldn't call them the strangest.
Well, they're the strangest form of transport I've ever used.
The problem is, none of the things I've been on are really that strange.
I really had to reach for the cable car. I'm gonna be honest. That was.
Okay.
I'm lucky enough to have travelled in cable cars, so I could use them as an easy out. But beyond that point, I'm like, what is strange?
I've got one that can actually stay on this panel, and it's as a little childlet, a little daughter,
Please,
when
just,
I was
just,
in
just use the
Madrid-
normal. Use the normal.
when I was in Valencia on a family holiday, I once threw the donkey through a multi-story car park.
Okay.
I guess technically a traction engine's probably the weirdest I've been on. Like, because it didn't end up going on the hydrofoil.
It's still a ship. It's not really weird or strange.
It is because it's a hydrofoil.
Yeah, but they're not really strange. I've been like.
They are compared to most other things. Yes, basically on a set of skis.
I've been on like 5
Okay.
hydrofoils.
So quickly, Chandlelord, I don't remember much about Valencia. I remember the Canal 6 at the time. I remember the donkey. I remember the hotel. I remember this really, really fucking good kebab place of all things.
Of course, it's kebab with you.
Well,
Anyway,
at least she's eating.
And I remember swinging around and punching some, it was either Spanish or Moroccan guy in the nuts when he tried to take my headphones off my head.
Wow.
Friendly reminder: Foxo has always been violent.
Yes, she has. I think I've basically covered a lot of what I wanted to cover. I do have to go make my pat lunch for tomorrow, and then of course, I want to turn in for an early night. If anyone else if either of you two, since I know you will probably have one or two things, anything you want to add on the topic of, since I do plan to do a, hopefully, if I'm not too tired, a ramblings on the Friday, which is going to be an alternate history ramblings. This is not confirmed. Don't take this as a confirmation. This is only if I'm not too tired on a Friday evening.
Fleet, have you heard of stimulants and energy drink?
That doesn't really work for me. Anyway, so before we finish for this evening, do you two have anything you want to add? Any other examples? Anything you want to tell people to avoid? Anything you want to tell people to include? Not so much specific questions, but themes.
Can we keep rambling going up here?
Well, yes, of course you can. It won't be streamed live or on YouTube.
Unfortunate, but I just need some questions because I want to talk about shit, but I don't know what shit to talk about.
Okay. Do you mean this ramblings, or do you mean ramblings on Friday? Because this isn't ramblings, this is the focused discussion. That's why you confused me.
We're in the fucking rambling zone. So.
Anyway, right. So yes, you can keep going. Is there anything related to the actual topic of alternate history questions?
Look, I can deal with alternative history questions far more than most people. I'm the sort of person who actually will spend a stupid amount of time going into detail on minor things if people want it. Like, so,
but I think
unless it is a open shut of, yes, what if we give 50 nukes to X nation? Like, as long as it's not blatantly the answers in the question, I honestly can just deal with whatever. And I'm not even going to limit it to historical stuff, like alt hists of science fictions and other things I can deal with as well.
Yeah, I would also like to put in as Birmingham Boys reminded me, the honourable mention to the transporting a large modern nation back in time.
Ah, yes, that's a very good point, Foxo.
And the repeated answer of they all starve to death as society collapses.
Yes.
Because the infrastructure of the 1700s can't sustain modern China.
This is
This
very true. I do also want to point out something. If there is one thing that you take away from this thing about asking alternate history questions, please let it be this. Detail, detail, detail. The more detail you can put into your question, dates, times, people, places, the better we will be able to answer the question. However, of course, this is ramblings, so don't submit pages worth of documentation, because I will probably go, I am not drunk enough for this, and move on from it.
Or you do, but you DM it to me.
And let Foxo condense it down into fleet consumable chunks.
Yes.
She's very good at that.
However, I will not tolerate anyone talking positively about France, the concept of France, the Franks, the Ottomans,
Stop
the
it!
Bretons,
Oh god, here
she's
the
gone
again.
Burgundians,
She's gone
the
again.
Alsace-Lotharingians, the
She's...
Savoyards,
Foxo.
You might as well just get going.
Yeah, I think
the Corsicans,
with her going off, I'm going to leave you all.
The Seychellians,
Take care, and I'll catch you all later.